None of this has done much to erode the support, at least among most Republicans, for Donald Trump. One of his most loyal supporters, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, says he doesn't know if the former president is the Republican Party's strongest candidate for 2024. Said that, then walked it back. Here's first what he said on CNBC yesterday.
It makes it complicated if he's got all these trials and all this stuff overhanging.
It makes it complicated. Also helps him when.
But do you think he could win an election? Could he win an election?
Can he win that election? Yeah, he can.
You think he can?
The question is he the strongest to win the election? I don't know that answer.
Questioning if Donald Trump is the strongest. Well, shortly after that interview, Rolling Stone says it began receiving unsolicited messages from Donald Trump's associates accusing McCarthy of being ungrateful to the former president, something we hear a lot from Donald Trump when people are not grateful to him. Then, in an attempt seemingly to do some damage control, McCarthy gave another interview with Breitbart News where he claimed, quote, Trump is stronger today than he was in 2016. Some reporting as well, Lanhee, that he called Donald Trump to apologize, which this entire episode yesterday that happened pretty quickly illustrates just where the party is. Maybe they quietly believe, and sometimes it leaks out onto CNBC, that Donald Trump is not the best opponent to run against Joe Biden, but they can't say that out loud for fear of getting in trouble with the boss.
Well, listen, as a Republican, I'll tell you, Donald Trump is not the strongest candidate to go up against Joe Biden. I will say this. I think there's two separate conversations going on, Willie. There's a legal conversation, and quite clearly the president, former president, is in significant trouble in that regard. Then there's a political conversation, and I think that the former president has made an assessment that he is going to continue doing what he did throughout the entire term of his presidency, what he did when he ran for president the first time, which is essentially to bolster his standing with the Republican base, and that seems to be working in that I don't think his numbers have eroded very much. Now, we'll see in the coming weeks and months whether that holds, but I think that the danger for Republicans here is that you have someone who could become the nominee who will be unelectable with independents and moderates who you need to win the presidency. And so there's a little bit of a challenge in that I think while he is continued to be the front runner in the Republican primary field, and I don't believe that has changed or will change, I do think it compromises the party's ability to do two things. One is to win the presidency in 2024. The second is to capture majorities in the House and the Senate, which I think other people in Washington around the country have some concern about.
So, Lanhee, let me stay with you. Donald Trump right now, we just saw what happened when Kevin McCarthy dared criticize him for a second. He had to come crawling back and apologize within hours. Some of the Republican candidates on the trail who are also vying for the nomination have started to go after him. Chris Christie has a lot. But other than him, it's pretty rare. We heard from Nikki Haley yesterday a little bit, just very specifically on China. You know, DeSantis has done it once in a while. Is this a moment where do you see anything? As you talk to people in the party, do you see any sort of sea change there where more of them might need to take him on, knowing that they have to beat him?
You know, politics is a pure marketplace, right? People are going to react to whatever will sell well, I guess. And so the challenge is that for many of these candidates, they see the same numbers that all the rest of us see. And the numbers they see tell them that support for the former president is still a significant factor in determining whether a Republican primary voter will support a particular candidate. And so the challenge is the tightrope you have to walk between appearing as though you still are in theory supportive of Trump, while at the same time trying to distinguish your own lane. It is a very difficult balancing act. It is very hard on the one hand to run against someone, and then on the other hand to say, well, but I kind of like them and I still support them, when the fundamental challenge is you've got someone who probably violated several federal laws. So I just don't think that this particular balance is going to shift until the Republican primary electorate demonstrates that it's interested in moving on from Trump.